Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Honey, We're Home. I'm Nicole Pellegrino.
And I am Caroline Crawford Patterson.
And today we are joined by a very special, bubbly, hilarious guest. Her name is Kellee Khalil. She's an entrepreneur and CEO and founder of Loverly, which is an amazing DIY wedding planning platform. And she's the host of the Loverly Wedding Planning podcast. And she's also a mom to an adorable baby girl. So we're so excited to have you on, Kellee. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I think of all the things you said, the thing I'm most proud of is the last thing.
Yeah. The mother. Okay, yeah, I threw that in at the end.
Yeah, I love that.
Well, because listen, you are a mom. We both had the privilege of
meeting your perfect baby girl.
She's so adorable. How old is she now?
She's almost a year, so 11 months. And I hate when people have babies. Before I was like, everyone's like, they're 36 months or weeks or whatever it is. And it used to drive me crazy. But she's 11 months, 1 week, so almost a year. And it's just crazy because they develop so fast and everything changes day to day, week to week. And it has been such an amazing year.
Wow.
First time mom.
Yeah, you're in the thick of it. You really have been in the thick of it. Well, the thing about you, why we wanted to bring you on, we've both been on your incredible podcast and had so much fun, even though it feels like
it's so much fun.
I went on probably, it feels like 3 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, OG. Yeah. You were an OG guest first season, I think.
Good job, Nikki.
I know, right? It was like virtual. I think it was like COVID times. But you really are one of those mothers that at least makes it look like you are doing it all, which I think you are. You're doing it all. You're literally a CEO, you're a founder, you're a businesswoman, you're an entrepreneur, but you're also an amazing mom. And we just have such mad respect for you. So we're going to talk about all of that stuff and more today.
We're excited to just shoot the shit with you and get like the real tea on like what goes into like feeling like you can at least maybe do a little bit of everything.
Well, so here's the thing. You all know me because we've spent some time together one-on-one, and I am so direct. I tell it how it is. And I mean, you guys both know about my home birth. I told you in detail, which sometimes is TMI for people.
I love
I keep it real. So any questions you have?
Wait, your home birth story converted probably a lot of us to do our research on it.
Yeah, wait, okay.
It was a bunch of brides-to-be at a long table or recently married women, and I just felt the need to tell my full detail of my home birth. And at the end, everyone's like messaging me like, wait, like, can I ask you more about that? And I'm like, if anyone has questions about home birth or birth in general, like,
hit a girl up.
An open book.
No, wait. Okay, not to sideline us because we do have a ton of other questions for you too. But I like low-key forgot you did a whole home birth. I don't know how. But can you please tell the quick story of that? Make it as long or as short as you want, honestly, because it is such a fascinating story.
Sure. I'm happy to tell the whole story. Well, the first thing I want to share is that one, I decided to have a baby later than I think a lot of people do. So I just turned 40. Which I don't like to say my age a lot, but 40.
You don't look 40 at all.
No, truly.
I actually could not have guessed that.
Thank you. Well, part of, my journey as an entrepreneur and now mother, is I put everything into whatever it is that I do. And so with business and starting Loverly, that was my whole life for my late 20s and 30s. It was just my business, and my business was my baby. And then I realized, oh crap, I actually want to have a family. I mean, I always knew I wanted to have a family, but time was whizzing by. Like it really races by. And one thing I would say, unsolicited advice, right, to all of your listeners,
give it.
I really wish that I would have done it earlier. I really wish that I would have started my family earlier.
Really?
I kind of grew up in the time of the 2000s, 10s, 11s, the whole girl boss era, where everyone was super celebratory of being a girl boss, of hustle culture, of, running a business and putting your business first. And look, I was 100% one of the poster women for it, right? I was all about that lifestyle.
Yeah.
Why do you wish you did it earlier? Because we get a lot of questions. Like, we're 30 and 31 years old right now, and we get questions like, are you guys worried you're going to be older moms and you're going to be tired? Like, do you feel more tired now? Just why in general do you wish you did it earlier?
Do I look tired?
You don't look tired at all. No, you joined this video and we were both like, whoa, she's glowing. But you don't look tired.
Thank you.
But like, why do you wish you did it earlier? Just cause?
The reason why I wish I had a baby earlier is it has been the biggest joy of my life. It has been something that has been so transformative. For me, I know, Nicole, I shared with you, I lost my mom like 10 years ago, but she was very sick for a large part of my like upbringing since I was like 13, terminally ill with a rare form of dementia that happened when she was like in her 50s, which is like unheard of.
Right.
And so part of having a baby and becoming a mother has been such a healing experience for me as someone who lost my mom. So that is one thing that, you know, maybe doesn't relate to everyone, but for me personally has been incredible.
Yeah.
2, as an A-type perfectionist, somebody who is go, 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 for the first time in my life, there's someone else that is my boss that isn't me, right? Because I, as an entrepreneur, you know, you're your own boss and you're like a gnarly boss, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And so I have to attune my life and my schedule to some degree to accommodate her. And that is such an amazing experience to surrender in that way. So number 2, and then 3, I just think women a little bit have been sold a lie that, you know, fulfillment's going to come from your career. And, you know, there's this whole like trad wife thing that's happening where people are moving off the grid and like it's going to an extreme, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's a reaction. A lot of millennials are caught up on it. And I'm kind of traddy. I'm a little bit traddy. I live, you know, in the woods. But I think it's a response to the fact that we went so all in on work. We live online in a digital era, and there's something so special about focusing on your home and your family and that connection that you have in the home. And I think it's one of the most important things. So for that, I wish I would have done it earlier because there's so much fulfillment. It's so beautiful. It's so lovely. And it's been really special.
Can you, and answer this honestly, if you had done it earlier, what would you have needed to like, and could you have, and did you potentially overthink it to get your business to the same scale that it is today? If you would maybe had her a few years prior, still in the building phase of your business, what do you think that would have done?
So that's a really great point, right? Like, that's part of why I didn't do it. I will have I will start my family when. I will have a baby when. Well, that when is always going to move because it's never the perfect time to have a baby.
Right.
Like, you can try to plan it as much as you can, but it doesn't work like that. So when I say I wish I would have started earlier, I'm not saying at 27 years old or even 30 or 31, but 35 would have been a great, 4 years earlier.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to resources, that was my biggest fear. Like, being a New York City woman, my friends that had babies or people I knew, right? It's like they had doulas, they had night nurses, they had nannies, this whole list of resources of things around them. And that's expensive. So there's no if, ands, or buts around it that I was also delaying because I wanted to have all these resources around me. But the thing that is magical about being a woman and being a mother is that we are master problem solvers and we are able to gracefully shift. So I think for anyone, who's thinking about starting a family, I'd say rip the Band-Aid off, just start, right? Because you don't know how long it's going to take, right?
Can I be honest?
There's never a perfect time. Yeah.
I just started tearing up while you were talking because did we not have this conversation right before? I mean, we have this conversation
today.
Every day. Like, we're both just like panicking because we feel like we're not there in our careers yet, or we're not. Also, we're both very hormonal right now because we're
super. And even really transparently, like financially, like Nikki was over at my apartment and I was telling her like, I don't want to get pushed out of New York by having kids, because I think that I have a lot of time left here, and so does John with his career. And if we do it too soon, are we going to get pushed out because we can't afford the resources that the people that stay here have, and if we wait too long, what's going to happen? And it's all a mind fuck that like you can only have one or the other, or you have to have all of this to have that.
And I think it's just refreshing.
It's so stressful.
Yeah.
No, I think New York City adds another layer of pressure. First of all, I want to say, I am guilty. I used to judge all of my friends or women that I knew that had babies early and moved outside the city.
Yeah.
I thought that leaving New York City was for quitters. I lived in New York for 13 years.
You really were the girl boss era.
Yeah.
Look, I have like every single one of those cliches or things like that was me, right?
I had those.
It was real. But COVID pushed me out of the city because it was miserable to be in Manhattan and Brooklyn in an apartment working from, like, my office shut down. My fiance works from home. We were on top of each other in a 1,000 square foot 2-bedroom in Brooklyn. And we were looking for a weekend house, right? And so when we found it, we're like, there's no reason to be in the city right now. And when things normalize, we'll come back. When I left New York City and I ended up in the woods, I felt my entire nervous system just like relax and recalibrate. And that hustle culture that I was consumed in with my business and, my everyday life, that was part of what started to slow me down and get me more into the present and thinking and setting up the environment where I was ready and able to have a baby.
That's so interesting that you did this move out to the burbs before, like, did you do this move before you even started thinking about the baby and before you were pregnant?
Oh, way before. So basically the timeline is I started Leverly in 2012. So it's been around for a while.
Okay.
She's not even a baby. She's a teenager at this point.
Cool.
Okay?
She's 12 years old.
She's 12 years old. So I started her in 2012. In 2020, I got engaged to my now fiance.
Okay.
We've been engaged 4 years.
Wow.
Yes, baby. No wedding yet.
Love it.
So 2020 got engaged. And then at the end of 2020 is when we moved out of the city and bought our house. So we were here for 3 years before we got pregnant. And we weren't even thinking, we were like, we got to get settled. This house was a full project. Like, it was a full DIY makeover situation. Thank God my fiance is a contractor because every single room he's kind of renovated, including this wainscoting on this wall in my office
that we
here.
love.
Love that.
So it was not my intention, move to the burbs, have a baby. It was more just, didn't want to be in the city anymore. And I kind of let my path take me down where it needed to go, which was, in the woods.
And once you let go of the hustle culture, did you find that Loverly was still able to grow even outside of the city? Yeah, really.
Bigger. Yeah. So I think I'm going to speak for myself. I think I put a lot of pressure on myself to grow the business and to hustle. And there is something that is said about being in your feminine and being relaxed and being open and letting things flow to you. And I was very much in my masculine energy in New York. So masculine energy is, go, 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 build, structure, control, container. Like that's what the masculine, and where the feminine is more relaxed. It's about receiving. It's about being in flow. And being in New York City, the energy was it's intoxicating. It's amazing. I love coming in. It's like I get a high when I get off the train and I'm in the city. But it was leading me to, which I didn't realize, adrenal fatigue and burnout, because I was grinding. I was like a 3 coffee a day girl. And then I would go to the bar to meet up with a friend and be out till 2, and then berries at 6 in the morning. And I was just like on this treadmill of super speed.
That makes total sense that you were just as successful with Loverly and then ready in the right mind space, headspace, everything to bring a baby into the world when you were in the suburbs because of the nervous system just slowing down. And I feel like that's just so refreshing to hear, because admittedly, I have this fear. I feel like I'm the old you. Like I'm hustle. I'm in my masculine energy. We always say I'm the man in my relationship. Mike hates when we say that, of course, but like I have this fear that when I have my first baby, likely in this apartment now in Hoboken, I'm not technically in New York City, like I'm inching out to the burbs, but I'm like, why do I have this fear that my priorities will change and I will want to be in a bigger house in the suburbs? Like, and then I get on myself because I'm like, why is that a fear though? Like that shouldn't necessarily be a fear, but I think I'm kind of like how you were, like, is leaving the city considered quitting? And so it's just refreshing to hear that like it's not, and you can be Kellee.
The reality is there is a narrative out there. Why do you feel that way, Nicole? And why did I feel that way?
Right.
There's something in the New York City culture that perpetuates this fear. And I call bullshit. And that's what I'm saying. I will, break it down and say, look, that was BS.
Right.
Like, get out of the city. There's nothing wrong with getting out of the city. Your social life does not end because you're now a train ride away, right? There's actually so much beauty and possibility and new things that can come. But I 100% relate with what you're saying. But all I'm saying is that the fear is way worse, or it's not even close to what the reality is. The reality is amazing. So,
what about the fear of like, because obviously your other goals take a backseat to parenthood, and I think that's just like natural because now you've built this life and you have this huge thing, and it's probably the biggest joy you'll ever have. But this fear that like you will lose yourself outside of your child, like you'll have nothing left, or like I have a personal fear that I'm like build, because once I start parenthood, I'll have to kind of just leave everything else where it is and it will not continue to grow.
That's the lie.
Yeah.
That's the scam.
Debunk it,
That's
baby.
the scam. Because here's the thing. Once you have a baby and you start a family, what better motivation is there for you to build than for your legacy, than for what are you building for?
Yeah.
What are you building for? Your ego? Or
so true.
More money in your bank account? Like those things are helpful. Don't get me wrong. Having more money, having more resources is helpful. But what are you building for? You're building for insert blank.
Yeah.
Right? More time, more meaning, more connection. And you can have those things. And I think you become better because now you have more motivation.
Yeah. Do you feel like your time, like when you are spending work on Loverly, is more productive now? Like you're not
way more
dicking around enough as much, for lack of a better term.
You get way more focused. I mean, look, like and it might be different for a lot of moms. So I also want to kind of back up because when you first have the baby, or when I first had my baby, I'll talk from my perspective. When I first had my baby, I didn't have the luxury of actually properly disconnecting and taking time off. So that is something that was hard for me because I thought I would be able to disconnect and be gone for 3 months. And I really do think that if you have a corporate job or a regular job and you have maternity leave, take it. It's so important. I was still getting tapped into things quite a bit, which is fine. But those first 90 days are so special. They're so raw and emotional. And your brain shrinks when you have a baby. That's actually a biological thing that happens.
Wow.
So that you narrow in on the needs of the baby.
Oh, wow.
So it's a real biological response that happens. So the mom brain thing is real because your brain is literally shrinking to focus in on the needs of the baby so that you're not distracted by other things. So, the I can have it all thing. It's not like I'm still girl bossing. I'm now, the way that I operate is different. The way I set my schedule, the way I prioritize my day is very different. But I personally think it's more effective. To me, there's more joy, and there's nothing more amazing than being able to like pop downstairs and see my baby while she's having lunch, or grab her because I'm still nursing. I'm on a Zoom meeting. I'll turn off the camera and pop her on the boob. And it's been really, really special.
Yeah.
I really love that.
Me too.
And speaking of that though, what resources have you found the most helpful being an entrepreneur, even honestly, and I think this could be applicable to moms that work from home just in general, like what resources have been the most helpful to you, even if, you know, they're on the pricier side or whatever it is? Like, what do you feel like has given you the most like freedom and help?
Well, I first would start with preconception. So before I was pregnant to now, because I think it's not like you just have the baby and everything, you know, and then you get the resources. You start early. So for me, before I got pregnant and I knew I wanted to start a family, I started to do research and I started to inform myself. And the things that were most helpful was other moms or friends who were already moms kind of sharing how they did it, what they did to make their pregnancy journey, their birth, and their, you know, new life as a mom the easiest. So definitely number one is tapping into your community. There are a lot of resources online. There were a bunch of Instagram accounts that I followed that helped me with like thinking about food and fertility and, you know, living a clean life, which I know I shared a little bit with you both, but I think it's
the candles thing.
How toxic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
We underestimate how toxic our environment is and how that impacts our hormonal health and how that can impact, you know, fertility and all this stuff. So, you know, I did a lot of research. I tapped into my community to kind of do this like pre-conception detox. And then while I was pregnant, I employed and found an incredible doula who started working with me and was kind of teaching me about, you know, tactics and strategies for birth, preparing me mentally and emotionally for what was going to happen and physically. And I had an incredible team of midwives that were based in between Manhattan and here in upstate New York. And again, midwives are basically like doctors they're nurses, but all they do is deliver babies. So they delivered like thousands of babies. And my midwives specialized in home birth. So I had an incredible team
at
in
this
these
point,
two midwives.
Did you know that you wanted to do a home birth at this point, or did they kind of convince
you asked me this question in the beginning.
I did?
So
about the home birth?
I'll address the home birth.
I'm like low-key always trying to get to the home birth because I'm so fascinated in it.
I know. It's like less than 1% of births in the United States happen at home. So it is a very rare thing. So basically, I think it was like 15 years ago in my like mid-20s, I saw this Netflix documentary that Ricky Lake did, which was called The Business of Being Born. And we rewatched it last year when we were pregnant, and it literally looks like it was filmed on like a camcorder, like just the quality of a documentary from then to now, it's mind blowing. But I would suggest you watch it because it talks about how, and things were very different 15 years ago, but it talks about how hospitals and our current medical system really does favor cesarean births because of efficiency. A lot of it has to do with money. A lot of it has to do with just wanting to have a process in the hospital that is on a clock and a timeline. And birth is the most wild, unpredictable, feminine experience. It can take someone 4 hours to have a baby. It can take them 4 days. Wow. So because of that, it's hard to build a system around it. So I might not be doing it justice, but that documentary was very eye-opening and really piqued my interest on it. And then as I moved into the woods, I call it, when I moved upstate, and my nervous system really started to calm down and I started to really ground, I was looking back at my life and I'm seeing like why I always had like autoimmune things. I always had achy joints, fibromyalgia, rashes, skin stuff, stomach stuff. I was always like needing to do a cleanse or a detox. I was never feeling great. And a lot of it was because I was ignoring my body. I was ignoring my body's natural symptoms of dis-ease, stress, right? So it could have been drinking too much coffee. I felt jittery, like whatever. It could be, you know, too much screen time. It could have been too much time sitting down, whatever it was, or eating, you know, gluten or cheese or things that like I would just ignore my body, and it compounded over time. And I always felt kind of shitty, like all the time. Like I was like, I was like, oh, that's just part of like being in your 30s, you know, whatever.
Right.
But as I moved up here, I'm like, oh, a lot of that was like environmental. A lot of that was stress. And so I started to listen more to my body. And so when we got pregnant, there was a lot of intention around it. I worked with a good friend of my fiance. She's a shaman, and she did a womb clearing.
Cool.
Healing.
Oh yeah,
on
we
me,
did discuss this because I said I wanted to do that.
We get really woo woo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. You had a whole team. You had midwives, doula,
so she was pretty awesome. Yeah.
Dang.
She prepared energetically the womb, but I just became more in touch with my body and more in tune and more connected to it. And as you're pregnant, it is the most awe-inspiring thing to see how incredible our bodies are and what they do and how they change. Mm-hmm. And so that's why, because I'm like, I trust my body. I know that I trust my body to do this, and I want to have a full experience. So that's why I decided to do a home birth. I found my midwives. It was a little bit hard because where I live in the woods, there weren't that many that like service this area. So that was a little bit of a journey. There's not a lot of not as many home birth midwives out there.
Okay.
And I found a doula that specialized in home births as well. And then when the baby came, it was me and my partner in the house for the first, 3.5 months. My parents are on the West Coast, so they weren't around. My in-laws weren't so far. So, they were great and helpful. They'd come by and help a little bit. But the thing that for me, as someone who works full-time and has their own business, I really needed full-time help. So I did not do a night nurse.
Okay.
I didn't do any, there's a lot of doulas that do postpartum doulas who come and cook you meals and all that stuff.
Okay.
My in-laws made food for me. My, friends were bringing by food. So community was very helpful.
Yeah.
But at 4 months, we did get a nanny. Okay. And that was a game changer. And she lives with us. She's incredible. She's an extended part of our family.
Wow.
And that has made it possible for me to really work really hard and be so focused during the day. And then as soon as my day is over, be able to mom it up.
That's so nice though. My one friend, don't quote me on this, but my one friend was like, we're actually looking into an au pair or a live-in nanny because oftentimes
that's really popular.
They can sometimes cost less than like hiring a nanny to come over. I don't know how that works, but
yeah, au pairs are very popular. They're usually like college age students. So they're coming here and they're usually enrolled in some type of education program. They cost a lot less than, a full-time nanny because you're providing room and board. That's part of their comp. And I think there's like
that makes sense.
A stipend that they get every month or whatever it is. But my sister had an au pair. She had an excellent one that she loved, but they're usually only available for 2 years because the programs are finite. And she had a great one that she had. And then she had another one that wasn't so great. And it's really hard because then they live with you and you can't really get rid of them.
Yeah, that is very difficult. I feel like we keep tiptoeing more and more into this subject on the show of like resources and what's the most, helpful one for different moms, etc. But something that got brought up last episode because we were talking about, which we can get into, like the adjustment into fatherhood is different than the adjustment into motherhood, and how sometimes men aren't totally aware of like all the baby stuff and, how serious it is entering that era. But someone did submit something where they were like, yeah, my husband just thinks you can just work from home and have a baby and it doesn't really like change your life or like impact your quality of work or your day. And Nikki and I just sort of laughed to each other because we know moms who work from home and it's extremely challenging for them to balance it all.
If I didn't have a nanny, there's like, you can't hold the baby. Like babies, the reason why I have a nanny and the point that I decided to hire one was when my baby was 3 months old and I was on a Zoom call and she was sitting in her little boppy chair over here, right? And I could see her and she had a big diaper blowout and I'm on a call and she's sitting in it and I'm like, oh my God, like I can't, like, I'm not going to let my baby sit in the blowout, right? But I'm like on a professional call and I was just like, I gotta go. Something came up and I hung up the call and I took her and I changed her. So that was like sign number one. And then the next day I realized I could tell she was getting bored. She was sitting in a chair and she was like, wanted to be stimulated. And then I felt the first mom guilt I ever had, where it's like, I brought this baby into the world to experience a beautiful life. And like, I don't feel like I can give her the attention she needs. She needed to be able to go outside on walks multiple times a day and have someone who's playing with her and, you know, teaching her things. And you can't do that if you are working, right? So that's where, and that's why a lot of parents will opt for daycare.
I was just going to say.
The babies to be around, you know, to be stimulated.
That's such a great point that you're like, even regardless of what you can do, which you cannot, you know, accomplish all of these things well. I mean, you could probably do them all, but really, you know, struggle. And that's got to be a normalized discussion. Aside from that, it's like, is the baby getting the experience and the attention that they're here to have, or like that they need?
It's all about balance. Because for me, I opted to not have a night nurse, right? So many of my friends in the city got a night nurse because they wanted to have that 12 hours of sleep or 10 hours or whatever it is.
So they could go to work in the morning.
They were going back to work.
Yeah.
They were going back to work.
That's what I'm saying. Like this is everything I know. All the people I know in the city doing this, it's like, there's such a higher bar of entry to having children. Like you've got to be able to afford the whole laundry list.
You don't need to have a night nurse.
Yeah.
No, you don't need to have a night nurse. It's helpful, right?
Yeah.
If you have it, but I know some people who spent $30,000 on a night nurse.
They're
in New York, 'cause that's how much it costs
expensive.
if you want someone for 3 months. That's college tuition.
No, it's crazy.
It's a down payment on a vacation home in a remote land. I don't know. It's half of a wedding budget. I don't know. It's a lot of money. But for me, so I decided not to have a night nurse because we co-slept. I wanted my baby in the bed with me. Okay. I wanted to nurse her at night. We still co-sleep, which is another like controversial thing. We've not done sleep training.
Speak on it.
She still sleeps in the bed with us. It's my favorite thing in the world. She sleeps with us. She's so cute. If she's hungry, she wakes up in the middle of the night and now she's big enough, she crawls over and just like puts her mouth on the boob, which is hilarious.
Oh my God.
Wait, I did not know you do that. My favorite thing about you that we're learning through all of this is that you might be doing some of these controversial things. I've heard controversial things about home births especially from like the scientific doctors and people that they're like, you need to be around a hospital. But you, Kellee, are doing everything that you've found that works for you and your family, and you're marching to the beat of your own drum. And I feel like it makes sense because you literally founded your own company. Like it's that entrepreneurial spirit of you to be doing this, but like the co-sleeping, the home birth, everything, and I'm very inspired that you're just like, I don't care. I'm doing it because it works for me.
I really like it.
Thank you. Thank you. I will tell you guys about the home birth because I think it's really, I'm not going to give you all the details, but I think it's really important for women to know, okay? Birth is not scary.
Okay.
Birth is natural. Your body knows what to do. And there's nothing more empowered and special than being able to give birth. Like it is such an incredible experience. And so for me, the choice to have the baby at home was I wanted to have an uninterrupted experience.
Right.
So I had, what does that mean for me? That means that like I could set the lighting. I could eat while I was in labor. I was wearing my cozy clothes, throughout the labor. I could choose who was around me. It was me and my partner me and my fiance for most of the day, right? There's not nurses coming in, checking on me, right? So it was a completely uninterrupted experience. Now, I will say, I think it's something like 5% of home births will lead in a transfer to the hospital. Right? But it's not because of an emergency. It's because if your birth is taking 4 days and you're exhausted, then you might want some help, right?
Yeah.
There's different reasons, but it's not very often that you're transferred for an emergency.
Okay.
So I think we're programmed, all the TV, movies, things that we see, when a woman is giving birth, she's screaming at the top of the lungs. It's the most pain that she's ever had. And so that imagery that we've been brainwashed from, like we've been brainwashed by all these media and that we see, that we consume. That's not the reality of what birth can be like. So I watched hundreds of home birth videos. I read Ina May's Guide to Childbirth, which had hundreds of stories of women describing their own birthing experience. So I was mentally and emotionally prepared, and I did physical training as well to prepare for the birth.
Wow.
And my birth took 22 hours. It was, and I can give you the breakdown if you want, but
yeah. Wait, I'm curious about the physical training.
Me too.
What is that?
And should we all be doing it?
Like Kegels? I'm doing them right now.
No. So, I'll give you a couple examples. So one, it's a mental training.
Oh,
so
I need that.
Contractions, right? They're about 60 seconds long, which is 60 seconds of discomfort. So preparing your mind to be able to manage 60 seconds of pain. So one exercise that I did was I would take, and Jesse did it with me, my fiance, we took a bowl of ice and we would hold ice in our hand for 60 seconds.
Yeah.
Right? And how at the end, you should try it sometime. You hold it and it starts to get really cold. It starts to be uncomfortable. Like, what do you do when you're uncomfortable? Like, do you tighten up? Do you start to
scream.
Where does your mind go?
Okay.
And so the mental training of that, of like the discomfort of holding like the ice. Also, I'm a big cold plunge girl. So I was doing cold plunges before. I got up to like 8 minutes in a cold plunge, which I do not recommend.
Oh my God. Badass.
The disconnecting your mind from the body, like the physical, is really, really important. So those are two things I did. If you guys work out, if you ever sprint trained or run or whatever, and you want to give up, and you're just like, I just got to get to the next minute, right? It's the same thing.
I don't think I'm strong
enough. So those
enough
were some things I did. No, you are. Every woman is.
Okay, go on.
Every woman is. And that, I think that you need to say that to yourself, and we all need to tell each other, you are absolutely. Girl, you do Barry's boot camp. You can do Barry's boot camp class.
True. Yeah. But I cheat the whole time. Like I give up. Oh. But I'll start. Now I'm going to keep this in mind when I'm working out.
Just make it to the next minute.
Just make it.
You can do anything. When I was sprinting on a treadmill at Barry's boot camp, I would think I can do anything for 60 seconds. And that is the same mentality you have when you have a baby. There was one more tool that I used during my pregnancy, during my labor, which was a birthing comb. Okay. Have you ever heard of a birthing comb?
No.
Okay. It's a wood comb, like a hair comb.
Do you have okay.
And I would hold it in my hand. I'll send you a photo. Whenever a contraction would start, I would breathe in and I'd count 5. And I'd breathe out, counting 5. And I would squeeze the comb on the way out, and it would make a little input, and I would feel a little pain in my hand.
Yeah.
And it's a biohack. It distracts your brain from the pain in your lower back and contraction, because you can only experience pain in one place at one time.
Wow.
So I would do that, and then I would do it again. Breathe in for 5 and breathe out.
Oh, I need
and squeeze
that.
it. So there are
What a
photos of me
simple but
at my house
fantastic hack.
with my birthing comb.
It sounds like you were just
on Amazon.
I really thought you were going to tell us that you had to like shove it up, like your vagina or something. This is much better.
The baby
$9 on Amazon sounds better than
in
that.
your hand. Yeah, truly. I know. I was like, where are we going with the comb? But that makes sense. It just sounds like you were very present your whole birth, like very mentally, physically present there. And so, like, did you feel the pain of it? Like, how was there? Did any problems happen during it? You had your team there, I'm assuming. The midwives.
So I'll give you the timeline.
Okay.
I'll give you the timeline because I think it helps contextualize it. So first of all, my baby came 2 weeks late, and everyone started to worry. He's at 42 weeks. Oh my God, it's dangerous. You have to go. And a funny story, my fiance and I are really into astrology, him so much more. Like, he mapped the day that we met, and like, is this a
green
good
flag.
astrological connection? Yeah.
Huge green flag.
So he's really into astrology, and she was due 10/10, which means she was going to be a Libra. And then that passed.
Yeah, she's a Scorpio.
She was surprised. She was a Scorpio, which is the most Scorpio surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah. Love a Scorpio. Scorpio women are the most strong and powerful. So
they are.
That's why I was scared, kind of. I was scared because y'all get mad.
Yeah.
Run.
Oh, yeah.
But
no, they get, my sister's a Scorpio and she's a Scorpio, and they like get along, and it's a little scary for me. Yeah.
Scary.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So she, the 25th rolled around. I'm now like 2 weeks overdue, and Jesse said to me, he's like, maybe you should get induced. I'm like, I did like one ultrasound this entire pregnancy. I have not had like any gluten or dairy. I was like perfect during my pregnancy. I was like, follow whatever. I was like, I'm not going to get induced. My body knows she's going to come when she's ready. So lo and behold, I wake up on October 26th. I think it was a Friday. And at like 4 a.m, I had like a little bit of cramp. So I went to like go to the bathroom and I felt like a cramp and I wiped and I was like, oh, there's like blood. And I'm like, oh, so it's called the bloody show. It's like when you start to bleed, that's a sign that labor could be starting.
Nobody told me that.
So I get back into bed.
You learn something every day.
Yeah. Sorry guys. I don't know how detailed we're getting.
No,
here,
I love that.
No, that's fantastic because I just was like, oh, your water breaks, and sometimes they just have to break it for you, and that's it.
Some people, their water breaks early.
Right.
Yeah, my water didn't break until 8 hours later.
So I am learning a lot. So there's a whole bloody show.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So first you lose a mucus plug. You lose the mucus plug.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Because there's a mucus plug that protects, the baby from coming through.
Love it.
So anyways, 4:15, woke up, went pee. I was like, oh, there's a little bit of blood. And I got back in bed. And then I had like a little cramp again, like 10 minutes later. I was like, that's weird. And then I couldn't go back to sleep. Now it's like 4:30, 4:45. And like I had another cramp. So then I poked my fiance. I'm like, I think like it's happening. Like I had cramps. And he's like, all right, well, let's time it. So then like 10 minutes later it comes and I had another one. And he's like, okay, you're definitely having contractions. Let's call the midwives because they tell you to call them right away. Right. So at 4:45, we call the midwife. We're so excited. Like, we're having the baby. It's happening. And they're like, oh, hey, how are you doing? I'm like, good.
Oh, God.
It's like, I had a contraction. They're like, good. Okay. Go back to sleep and call us in a few hours when they get closer together.
Oh, wow.
You're like all wrapped up.
Oh, see, I'm not.
We were
too anxious.
We were like, let's go. We're having
Especially because she's late. You're like, heck yeah.
Yeah, I'd be
But
freaking.
they know, these midwives have had delivered thousands of babies that like labor can take 4 days. It can take, it could take. Oh, wow. So they knew the signs.
They were like, pipe down, Kellee. It's going to be a minute.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. So I tried to go back to sleep. I couldn't. I got my comb. I laid there. I laid on my higher dose, like PEMF mat, which I was like I had my dog in the bed with me. And honestly, I had 4 contractions an hour. So every 15 minutes, I had like 60 seconds of discomfort. And 60 seconds is like nothing. So the first kind of like 5 hours were like uneventful. It's like I had 4 minutes of discomfort. And then we went outside. It was like 80 degrees. Jesse made lunch. I was on my bouncy ball. We were like laying in the sun, playing with the dogs. And like, now it's like 12:31. I'm like, is this, they started maybe getting a little closer, like 8 minutes apart. Call the doula. And I'm like, what do I do? Like, I want to get the show on the road. So she gave me these exercises to do. There was like 4 positions that I could like get in. It's kind of like downward dog and like these different things. She's like, these will help get the baby to start shifting and moving. Right. So I started to do them and it was crazy because within an hour, all of a sudden, like the contractions started to get more intense. And then all of a sudden, water was dripping down my leg. This is like 4 p.m. I'm like, oh, I think that's my water. Like my water broke. So called the doula. She's like, okay, I'll come over. So she came at 4. And then for 4 hours, she was with me. And now they were like 8 minutes apart. Okay. She was like, giving me water, making sure I was good. We were watching Friends. Like we were just chilling. Like we were just at home. 8 o'clock, shit started to get real where they were like, maybe like every 5 minutes apart and they were getting really intense. And I was like, I don't really like this. It's starting to hurt, but it's been going on for a while. And then I started getting a little bit of pain in my lower back where it was kind of like, it was like a disc. It was a weird pain like in my lower back. I didn't love it. So the doula called the midwives and they're like, we're going to head over, but give her a homeopathic remedy. So they gave me a homeopathic remedy. They dropped it in my mouth. The next contraction, no more of that weird lower back pain. The baby moved into a new position.
Oh my God.
And then my contractions went to 2 minutes apart.
Wow.
And when they went 2 minutes apart, that's when I started to cry. Yeah. I'm like, it's getting really hard. I don't want to do this. You get emotional. You get like beat up. So my fiance calls my sister, my older sister, who's had 4 kids. And she's like, you want to do this? You can effing do it. You can do hard things. You got this. And I'm like, okay, I got it. Midwives pop in. They come over. Hey, Kellee, how are you? They're relaxed. And I'm not feeling relaxed. I'm starting to get into active labor where everyone annoys you. And I'm like, I just need to focus. And I wanted to get into the tub. They were trying to like get their Doppler to like check me, and they could tell
you
I
were
was
like
getting snappy.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah. You're like, no.
But that's
I'm
the
ready.
sign. That's a sign that it's progressing. When you get snappy and you don't have patience or attention. So anyways, long story short, they check me. Everything's great. I go into the tub. I'm sitting in the tub for like 2 hours. At this point, it's getting more intense. It's just me and my fiance, candles lit. The doula would come every like 20 minutes to check on me. Midwives downstairs sleeping.
No, the midwives are too relaxed for me.
They're relaxed because they know they show up when delivery happens. They let me labor on my own. Okay.
Wow.
All of a sudden, around 11 p.m., I was having contractions. And at this point, I was a little bit annoyed. Fiance's putting ice on me. Then, I'm doing my moaning with my comb in the tub. And all of a sudden, I have a contraction. And it's like, and it feels like
a vomit?
And that's called a pushing. Yes, it's a pushing contraction.
Pushing the
Oh, you
baby
did
out.
say this because you were like, without the epidural, you can feel your body pushing it by itself.
Oh, that's true because the epidural numbs down
So
there.
then you have to be told to push.
Oh,
you don't have to be told to push. Your body pushes the baby out for you.
Oh, wow.
And that's what happened.
What
So
a badass. I can't
pushed
handle
for
this.
30 minutes in a
wow.
birth tub, wanted to have a water birth. After like my 10th push contraction, I was like, I don't want to be in the tub anymore. I took a poll of the room because I couldn't think. I'm like, do I stay in the tub? They were like, Kellee, if you want to get out of the tub, it's not that deep.
Oh, you
one step out of the tub.
Why didn't you want to be in the
with my
tub?
fiance?
You were just like, I'm over this.
Wait,
water.
did she
was
come
feeling
out
like
while
it
you were
wasn't happening
standing
fast
with
enough.
one foot in the tub?
I put both feet on the ground.
Okay.
So basically, what happened was the midwives were like, Kellee, you're like 2 pushes away. Like she's right there. So they're like, the next contraction, put your hand there and feel her head, thinking that was going to motivate me. And so like I felt her head and I was like, it's not enough. How is the whole body going to come out? I was like, in this kind of like mental spiral.
Yeah.
But they were like, you're very close. So I felt like getting out of the tub that the gravity would help. So I got out of the tub and on the first step out, I have a contraction. I go into a squat. And Jesse's holding my hands. We're like looking at each other. And I'm like, we're in a squat, dead eyes. And they were like, Kellee, try to get like on all fours. Maybe that'll be more comfortable. So I have one contraction on all fours. And then I lay on the side. I'm doing basically a side plank. And there was just one contraction and she just popped right out.
This is so primal. Like, this is how they were giving birth back in the Ice Age.
Do you know what I like about this though? Is like, you know what you wanted and then you went and got it.
Yeah.
And like so many people get met with so much backlash about how they want like their birth to be that they just end up getting bullied into doing whatever everybody else does. And it's like, you've really absorbed all the information from all of your friends around you, even when it comes to like, did having a doula work for you? Did having a night nurse work for you? Will it work for me? And like, you were so in it every step of the way that it was like, it sounds like you just really had no hesitation about what you knew worked for you. And that's the only motherhood advice I've ever received. That is, make sure you're just doing what works for you.
I would recommend everyone who's having a birth, if you can afford it, to get a doula, because when you are in the hospital or at home or wherever you decide to birth, you go into a mental state where you can't make decisions. You are so vulnerable. Part of your brain that is logic and reasoning, it has to shut off for you to get into your primal brain, for you to go through this basically life-changing experience. And your partner, it's so impossible to expect, whether it's your husband, your fiance, whoever it is, for them to know what you're going through. It's scary for them to watch it. Right. So if you're in a hospital, they're not going to know. They see you struggling or in pain. They're going to say whatever the doctors say, whatever the nurses say. But a doula is there to advocate for you and help you get your birth plan that you want, whether it's at home or in a hospital, and help, because you're too vulnerable to advocate for yourself at that point when you're in labor, and you cannot expect your partner to, because they're also having the experience.
Right.
They're part of the birth. Even though they're not in labor, they're part of the experience. It's new for them too. And there's so many emotions tied to their experience as well. And it can be scary, right, to watch someone. I highly recommend, if you ever get invited to be at a live birth, to do it, whether it's a sister or a cousin or a friend. Like, I got to get in the room, because that makes it so different.
Can somebody listening out there invite us to your home live birth, please?
I have a pregnant friend right now, and I'm like,
can I come?
She likes a home birth, so I'll be calling her after this, seeing what her plan is.
Truly, I'm joining that. No, that is such a good tip. I have heard that from other people too, just like having the doula there as your advocate, especially like you said, that your husband's not gonna, I mean, I know Mike, love him to death, but like he's not gonna advocate against a doctor for me. And neither am I. Like we're very, revert to the experts kind of people. So I feel like it can't hurt to have an extra expert in there. Not saying the doctors aren't experts either, but a doctor and a doula kind of like working together.
Yeah, they're there to coach you and advocate for you and be that emotional support. And also they've seen probably hundreds of births and they can be like, this is normal, this is not normal. And so first of all, I just want to say, if something was not going right with my birth at any time, I would have gone to a hospital. And I knew where I had a close hospital if it was an emergency, or if it was just I was tired when it was a little bit further. Like we had a plan, right, of what would happen. So you have to be prepared. So I knew. But I will say, if there was the option for a drug while I was, at home, I probably would have been like, yeah, give it to me. Anyone would be like, give me the drug. Yes. Yeah. This thing that's happening, I don't love it. Give me the drug. But it's not even an option when you're at home, right? So you find a way to cope, and I would 100% do it again. Like it was such a special experience. Recovery was amazing. And the midwives cleaned up, and then we just like went to sleep in our own bed.
That's wild. And
woke up the next morning in our own bed with a baby. We're like, are there instructions that come with it? What do we do now? Like the midwives left. We're like, wait, what do we do? Like, I literally asked the midwife, like, can she sleep with me? Like, where does she, like, I was like in such shock. She's like, yeah, she's going to be in your arms. You won't crush her. Just, our nervous systems are connected to the babies. So we won't crush a baby. Because
my God. Well, will the dad, or is it just the mom? Like,
what about the dad?
I wish we had literally 45 more minutes to grill you about
I have so many questions. Like, did your milk come in immediately? What was like his experience with like immediate attachment to the baby? Is his nervous system attached to the baby? Like, I have lots of questions.
There's a lot of fear about sleeping with the baby. And you could do a whole episode on it. There's experts that talk about co-sleeping, for it, against it. But think about before we're talking about humans existed. Where do you think babies slept? 200 years ago.
On the rock next door.
Especially during the Ice Age, because they had to stay warm. I don't know why I'm like comparing everything to the Ice Age.
I literally went back to the dawn of time and like in the cave next door.
But it's very primal. So, I was nervous the first night, and then I wasn't nervous again. They only say that you are high risk of co-sleeping with the baby if someone's drinking or like consuming alcohol or drugs or tobacco, that there's a higher risk of like rolling over because you're not as aware.
Sure.
But obviously that wasn't the case in our case. At first she was in the little bassinet next to us, but then it was like we just kept bringing her in, and she slept so much better when she was next to us. So I was like, I'll just keep her here. She loves it. I love it. We still sleep together, like I said.
I love that.
Jesse's not so into it now. He's like, it's a year. It's time. I'm going to have a kid sleep with me when they're 18? No, but it's time.
Well, can I ask you a personal question? You don't have to answer, but do you feel like, was your postpartum experience different because you got to do the home birth? Do you think it helped at all?
Good cue.
I do think it helped because the recovery was a lot faster. So it was, like not any of your friends who have had epidurals or Pitocin, it's a pharmaceutical, right? So there's going to be some side effects some people have, and so that can impact your experience. So I can't speak from that, but just seeing what my sister and a couple of my friends have gone through, like for me, I felt like the recovery was really fast. Like I wasn't swollen at all in my face. Like my dad was like, when I FaceTime him, he's like, you look great. Like you don't look like you had a baby. Wow. So I felt like recovery wise was pretty easy. However, all the emotional stuff, right? Like I did have some postpartum, like intrusive thoughts. Like I would be like nervous. I had this thing like being worried I was going to smash her head into the wall. I'm like, I know this is not like a real thing. Like I knew rationally that wasn't a real thing, but I had that, which is very common. A lot of women have.
We were just discussing the postpartum anxiety actually the other day, because it's something that I'm not as familiar with as like the postpartum depression, but when you explained it to me, it made a lot of sense.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so that was one thing that wasn't great. And then to answer your question about the milk, and I know, this has now been all about my birth. So
no, thank you for sharing all this, because this is what we and the people want to know.
Yeah.
Happy to share. So the thing that was actually the most shocking for me was when the milk came in. So I prepared so much for the labor, the delivery, and all of that, and I felt really well versed. But then my milk came in really quickly. So I was collecting colostrum. I don't know if you guys know this, but at 37 weeks, you can actually manually express your nipples and colostrum comes out. And I had these tiny little suckers that I would use to collect the colostrum, like a drop at a time. And literally when I say it was a drop at a time, it was like so excruciating. But colostrum is basically like liquid gold for your baby. It's like a bunch of nutrients and vitamins. And so I collected it to freeze it in the event that she got sick. I could almost use it as like a supplement for her. And I still have it in the freezer. She used it once. So I had been, and my boobs were huge, like this whole time while I was pregnant. That was like one of my biggest signs I was pregnant is my boobs got huge. So I'd been collecting the colostrum. And so I felt like I was prepared, or I thought I knew, but no one had explained to me that when the milk comes in, it's like, your boobs get engorged. They get huge. Well, for me, they got huge and they got hot. And I had a wave of anxiety with the milk because I'm like, they're so big.
Yeah.
Like, what do I do with this? Do I pump? Do I not pump? And I was overwhelmed by them and they hurt. So I was putting ice packs on them and cold cabbage leaves, which is like a thing that like helps apparently. But yeah, it was the milk coming in was a whole mind.
Wow, no
That's
one
what I hear. We need to do a follow-up episode. My sisters said that whole thing too, and like my sister-in-law said hers were just like squirting out in the room all over the place.
Oh,
like,
the milk squirts too. The baby pops off, and it's like a sprinkler, and you're like, what's happening?
when the baby cries, milk squirts out.
And so,
the
hot thing, I didn't know.
We're gonna be like messes.
Yeah, I mean that's very, and I mean
you guys can do it. You just need to research and talk to other people, and
this is so enlightening.
And empower yourself with information. Because the fear comes from not knowing, right? If you know if you educate yourself and you know, it takes away the anxiety and the fear. And that was the one thing I did. I talked to as many people as I could that would share. I had 2 friends that had home births and shared in detail their stories. Like I spent like 3 hours on the phone with them. And that gets you mentally prepared. And everyone's birth is different, which is what's so cool about it. And I definitely would do it again.
Wow. Okay, we need you to give us, because I know we're nearing the end of our episode, but we need you to give us a little breakdown of your first baby, Loverly, so that everyone knows like where to find you and what it is that you built, like this amazing, great company, because we do have so many brides.
I know. We'll have to do a follow-up episode all about wedding stuff too, because we had all these questions for you about wedding trends and everything, but honestly, like this was so fascinating. And
you're such...
Let's do a wedding episode.
I would love
we'll do a wedding episode. But in the meantime, give us like a little breakdown of Loverly. And honestly, because it's a great story, what inspired you to start it?
Sure. So Loverly is a do-it-yourself wedding planning platform. So basically we make it easy for people to plan their weddings on their own. I always say if you can afford a wedding planner, 100% invest in it in some way, shape, or form. So I always lead with that disclaimer. But the reality is only 30% of couples actually hire a wedding planner. The other 70% do it themselves. And so we provide free wedding planning tools like a personalized wedding planning checklist, guest list manager, address collector. So you can text a link and get everyone's mailing addresses, because if you don't have that, that's important for invitations. A vendor manager. We have articles and tips and basically everything just to get you from the second you get engaged all the way through your wedding day. We also have a bunch of curated products from brands that we love, from like your tuxedo to your wedding dress, shoes, decor, all of those things. But the reason why I started Loverly was, the story is I was working in the wedding industry with my sister. My sister is a wedding publicist. So she represents, celebrity brides. She works a lot of now a lot of bachelor weddings, a lot of influencers getting married. But back in the day, she was working, with celebrities and celebrity planners like Mindy Weiss and, dress designers and destinations. And yeah, so that was our business. We were doing wedding PR. My sister got engaged. Her wedding ended up being a 10-page spread in Martha Stewart. Wow. So that gives you a sense of the scale of wedding that it was. But my sister and I, very connected in the wedding industry, from vendors to designers, the whole thing. And there was no Instagram. Can you imagine planning a wedding without Instagram? Right. There was no Pinterest. And people were still using magazines, which is whoa. And I just thought there needs to be an easy way to organize ideas online.
Yes.
To a brand that speaks to the modern bride and groom and what they're looking for. And so, I decided, hey, let's build a platform. Let's try to simplify it, make it easier and more fun. It's been, like I said, 12 years. So the product has completely changed from when we first started. It was more like a blog and just inspiration. It was basically like a Pinterest for weddings. And then we added on a blog, and then we added on tools, and the tools have gotten better and better and better. And then we recently launched our curated shop, so you can go in and see our favorite brands and stuff. So yeah, we try to make it easy.
I would use it out there if I were you guys.
It's just, the thing is it you're just an inspiration of a woman all together. Mm-hmm. And knowing you makes me trust you even that much more, because you are such an open book and you are so dedicated to everything you do. And so everything about your story, I feel like I definitely very much admire.
I'm inspired. Brides out there, definitely check out Loverly.com, because I wish I had used it. And I feel like you can still use it if you have a wedding planner. You can still use it as a way to organize everything and have an active
companion
role.
for sure.
Yeah. And a wedding planner doesn't do everything for you. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, other events.
Oh.
Baby shower, your bridal shower, your bachelorette. I plan my baby shower with it. And we have a collaboration tool, so you can invite whoever's helping you plan. So you can assign tasks to them. So I plan my baby shower with it. I assign tasks to my sister.
I'm assigning tasks
to my fiance.
I don't know if I'll assign them to you.
We have a budget tracker. Yeah. So we have it all.
She's like,
but if anyone has feedback, if you're planning a wedding and something is broken and doesn't work, just DM the Loverly team. We reply to every DM. We are trying to make the product better and better. So I also know that it's an evolving, living thing, and we love feedback. So check
that's
it out.
Really
what you like and don't like.
Smart.
The group, we're all a group of women here listening to you today that are planners, and we all like events, and we all like help, and we're all learning to ask for more help. So this is should be our best friend for everything.
For real. Well, thank you so much, Kellee, for coming on today and just being so open about your life and your story. We're going to talk about all the wedding stuff in a future episode, because we really just
went into
honed
motherhood.
In. But thank you for just
I'm sorry, the baby takes over.
It really does. I mean, that's
I told you, it was my happiest. That's my biggest accomplishment.
She deserves it. Yeah.
We've been on a tear trying to get more comfortable with the idea of motherhood. So this was exactly what we needed. No, this is what we needed.
Yeah. Selfishly, I needed you. And so we'll be stalking you, and I'm sure our audience will. Where can everybody find you? Instagram, drop everything.
Yeah, so at Loverly is where we live, on Loverly. So feel free to DM, follow over there. And then if you guys have any questions to me personally, I don't really post all that much in feed besides my podcast, but Kellee Khalil on Instagram, just KELLEE. Shoot me a message, and I will do my best to answer your questions that you have.
And if you are out there planning a wedding, you definitely need to give the Loverly podcast a listen, because I think that it's very entertaining. You've got a lot of people with good advice, a lot of people in the same boat as you. It's a nice, a nice companion for entertainment, throughout that process.
Totally.
Well, thanks for that, guys.
Yeah. Thanks, Kel. Not me abbreviating. Thanks, Kel. All right. Mwah. We'll talk later. We're being kicked out.